feel like the best years of your life are behind you, or perhaps you're struggling with a nagging health issue that you just can't seem to figure out, these 5 bioharmonization tips from Paul Chek may just turn all that around. In case we haven't met yet, I'm Nick Urban. Perhaps you believe that living longer and healthier means slowing down and going to the gym every day to work out and drinking expensive greens powders, or obsessing over every source of microplastics in your life. While each of those might make a difference, the best place to start is understanding some root cause principles. And a man named Paul Chek is extremely adept and world-class at doing exactly that. For over 3 decades, Paul's been blending the best of modern Western science with the timeless principles of prevention-based Eastern medicine to develop his own framework of holistic health. One that transcends biohacking and transhumanism and a lot of other trends from today in more ways than I can count. He's wrapped his decades of life experience and hands-on experience of working with thousands of clients over those years into his teachings at the Chek Institute. And today I'm going to be sharing 5 of the most transformative lessons I've learned so far from studying his work. It was hard to narrow it down to just 5, but by the end of this video, you'll walk away with some understandings that will stick with you for life. Starting with number 5, which is getting a 10,000-foot overview of the body, the mind, and any symptoms that might be going on in your life. The Chek system has what they call their totem pole, which is a hierarchical system which helps practitioners discover the root cause of issues. Perhaps more interestingly, it also shows the highest value areas to focus. So if you start at the top of the totem pole and you really optimize those, conditions and symptoms and dysfunctions that are occurring may just disappear. At the top of that totem pole, he puts circadian rhythm, or aligning the body's internal clocks with the natural environment. Now, circadian science is a hot and emerging topic these days. Its roots date back thousands of years to Ayurveda when they first mentioned it, but because the body has so many different intricate clocks, issues with circadian rhythm can manifest in countless different ways. Underneath that, he has your life dream, and then below that, your breath, because the way you breathe directly determines your survival. Disrupt your breathing for a few minutes, and most humans die. That's also why we see so much excitement around nose breathing and mouth taping and deliberate breathwork practices, because it's one automatic function that we can control, and when we do, lots of good things result. Most people walk around breathing dysfunctionally and actually have no idea they're doing it. Dysfunctional breathing causes all kinds of biological stress. Rather than taking a drug or a supplement which partially counteracts the stress, the better way to go is to fix the breathing pattern, and often that involves correcting the physiology and the psychology behind improper breathing. What I found most interesting though is, although there's a hierarchy of where to focus first, the limbic system has the ability to override and float anywhere on that totem pole. So, for example, suppressing emotions can cause that dysfunctional breathing, which then causes all kinds of other issues. Aside from the totem pole, Paul Chek also has what he calls the pain tree. So if you experience any kinds of chronic pains without a definite acute cause of the injury, for example, if your low back all of a sudden starts hurting one day and it wasn't because of a major accident or something, there's a way of tracing back life events to figure out what's underlying that injury. Because a lot of times pain and injury isn't caused by an acute incident. So these processes can all help you get to the bottom of what's causing dysfunction and at the same time build overall health. And when you build that overall health, your conditions may just disappear. Number 4, there's so many different topics in the health and wellness world right now that are extremely polarizing. Diet, how much sleep is necessary, the best types of movement and exercise, if you should be doing VO2 max training or power training or strength training, whether the hormetic stressors like cold and hot are healthy. And the answer to all of this is really yes. Context is one of the most overlooked factors of overall health, because the health practices, the biohacks, the protocols that get you healthy will often not be the same ones that keep you that way. For example, if you have issues with gut dysbiosis, eating a diet rich in FODMAPs and common intolerances like gluten, grains, foods high in anti-nutrients, things like oxalates, phytates, lectins, trypsin inhibitors, goitrogens, dairy, these might make your symptoms worse. So pushing through and consuming them because you heard somewhere that they're superfoods will be doing your body a disservice. That's why people tend to go to elimination diets like carnivore or rotation diets, autoimmune paleo, and follow those because they simply feel better. Now, part of that is the effect of changing the diet in general, which lasts 1 to 3 months usually, but also a part of it is removing the irritants to the body. Over the long term, however, things change, and all of a sudden the diet that got you healthy won't necessarily keep you that way. The composition of your gut flora will change, your hormone levels will shift, your body will produce less energy and more metabolic waste products. So part of the entire journey of health is to try different things, figure out what works with you, and be willing to change if that stops serving you. Number 3, following the correct order of operations. Now, with biohacking in general, it can be really tempting to look into the flashiest nootropics and peptides and bioregulator therapies, GLP-1s, all these things as fixes to get the kind of results and outcomes we're looking for. Of course, they all come with their own drawbacks, but what's really missing is that you might not have a strong why behind the therapy. And if you talk to the people who have the lowest rate of aging, they all tend to have very strong reasons that they can articulate about why they are doing what they're doing, why these health practices matter to them. It doesn't need to be some elaborate reason. When I interviewed Julie Gibson Clark, one of the leaders in the Rejuvenation Olympics, for her, it was mostly about looking and feeling her best, as well as being around for her son. But whether you're trying to lose weight, gain muscle, sleep better, look better, having a reason, a goal, an outcome that will last you for a long time is pivotal to long-term success. So in his system, he calls that your one love. Then after that, there's a whole sequence of other areas to explore and optimize. And any skilled Chek practitioner can walk you through these individually and help you customize your own plan. That's what I do with people, along with other things. The next one, for example, is to look at the forces in your life, the life affirmative building forces and the life destructive catabolic forces. And long-term health requires balancing the two. Not necessarily at the same time, but there must be periods of growth, such as sleep, such as hydration, nourishment, along with periods of expending of resources, most notably exercise, but also intense intellectual work and a lot more. So to be healthy, you want to focus on the high level things first, and then of course you can go on to the flashy, fun stuff after that. Number 2. And this one was the absolute hardest for me. I've always been a very quantified, data-driven, scientific-minded person. After all, I was previously a data scientist. So it was hard for me to embrace the entire other end of the pendulum, and that is the qualitative, the subjective, the personal experience. It doesn't necessarily line up with the studies. Yet really, clinical research is our best attempt at approximating what's going to work for you. But the way studies are conducted, you're really just getting the average effect on people. So you'll have people where the proven intervention works great, and you'll have people where the proven intervention does absolutely nothing for, or has negative impact. And there are just too many different factors to account for, from genetics to epigenetics, to your constitution, to your environmental exposures. So it's entirely possible that there wasn't a single person in the study that was at all like you. Then, as you may know, there's the entire other issue where the majority of the results from modern scientific studies cannot be replicated. That's why editors of the major journals have come out saying that the results we're seeing these days can no longer be trusted, yet most of the health world sees a headline and just immediately runs with it as if it's the truth for everyone. So just remember that every drug that was introduced to the market, sold to the public, and then eventually withdrawn because of major safety issues and in many cases killing people, they were first scientifically validated. Because these days, science is mostly just the marketing arm of a lot of these big companies, whether they're selling supplements or otherwise. And even the best randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled crossover studies regularly contradict each other. So what can you do with all this? Instead of blindly trusting in research, listen to where safe. Try it for yourself. Do testing before and after, jot down how you feel before and after, and make your own decision. You can use the research to guide your decisions, but it should never be the only source of information. That's also why over the last couple of years, I've focused much more on developing my intuition. Often my logical mind will want me to do something, and I'll do it, I'll try it, I'll implement it, I'll practice it, and I'll go against what my intuition tells me. And my intuition is virtually always right. I wasn't always like that, but the more I started being open to it and asking my intuition to guide me and just noticing what it said versus my logical mind and jotting it down so I could see and have record, I've noticed that my intuition is usually more accurate than my rational mind. So tip number 2 is to take note of your intuition, and as tempting as it is, try not to ignore the wisdom it provides you. It'll feel weird at first, but over time with practice, you'll get the hang of it. All right, if you want more content like this on holistic health, bioharmonization, longevity, and holistic biohacking, don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button. And also, if this kind of thing interests you, go ahead and check out the Chek Institute. They have online courses for individuals just working on their own health, and also awesome courses for practitioners to level up and work with coaches. I've gone through a lot of them, and I've shared my experience in a review, which I will link in the description of this video. The number 1 most life-changing piece of advice I got from Paul is actually fairly simple, and that is to be careful of belief systems. Because once you believe something, human nature is to discount or completely disregard any information that goes against that. In a lot of circumstances, that's fine. It doesn't have very big consequences, but for certain topics related to health and wellness, being closed off and in a belief system can absolutely wreck your long-term health. Now, this is easier said than done, but the way I apply that wisdom is that when I find myself speaking in absolutes, saying something is always this way, or it's never that way, or it's good for everyone, or it's bad for everyone, I take a step back and reevaluate if there's any evidence to the contrary, or a hypothetical situation in which there could be. Because oftentimes, the more we believe something, we want to belong to a tribe that's related. We will ascribe our identity to that group. So we will say, I am a carnivore, I am a vegan, I am a power lifter, I am X condition, or even I have X condition. And the problem with this is that it makes it subconsciously very difficult for us to change, even if it's in our best interest to change, and that belief system is severely negatively impacting us. It's hard simply because we've confused our identity with it. That's why in the ancient medical systems like traditional Chinese medicine and Ayurveda, the practitioners would not tell their patients that they have this disease or condition. They would instead call it a pattern, that they're presenting with excess heat or dryness. And instead, their language would reflect the impermanence of said condition. And this also applies across the board to so many things, both in health and wellness and outside health and wellness. The way I use this in my life is to simply keep more of an open mind. When I hear something that sounds impossible or ridiculous, instead of immediately dismissing it as that, I get curious and want to learn more information, because even the things that we think are impossible, such as losing weight without moving more or eating less, the whole calories in, calories out model, there are tons and tons of people that claim to have done it. By talking to them and learning their approach, then I discovered the avenues in which they can do that. And just remember that so many of the things that we thought were physically or biochemically impossible later turned out to be true, even though at the time, the mere suggestion that it might be possible was enough to get the person ridiculed and in some cases even killed. There you have it, my 5 holistic bioharmonizing tips I learned from Paul Chek so that you can live a better, happier, more fulfilled life. I hope you found some value in this video. If you want to learn more about this, I'll put everything I've discussed so far, including the resources, my review of the Chek Institute, and any news I come across in the description for this video. This is your host, Nick Urban. Until next time, be an outlier.